What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, family? It is me, Coach 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the awesome and amazing LDBC, Lions Den broadcasting community. Shout out to the Louisiana All American Sports Network. Shout out to Envision Photography, Video. And shout out to the greatest university in the world, the Southern University, home of the mighty Jaguars. Before I even start the show, I want to thank everybody who this past Tuesday wished me a happy birthday, whether that was via Facebook or here on YouTube. A couple other people reached out on other social media platforms. However, I just want y'all to know I appreciate it. I'm grateful. And thank you for all of birthday wishes this past Tuesday. Recently, I decided that until something prevents me from doing so, I'm going to do content every day, whether that's a live stream, whether that's a video talking about some type of Southern University topic or whatever the case may be. So that's the reason why I am here tonight. Truthfully speaking, I really didn't want to do the show tonight because earlier today I got some sad, tragic, and unfortunate news. Like one of the students that was in my class a few years ago, he was violently unalived and deleted. They found him behind the wheel of his car, and the car was all sprayed up. He was in between like a train track and a red light. Not too far from my previous school, and it's just a sad, tragic, and unfortunate situation. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this show so late. Ordinarily, I would have done this show probably about 4 hours ago. However, that situation that kind of turned me down a little bit. But even with that being said, for me, anytime someone passes, it kind of allows me to self-reflect and just look back over my life and just kind of be grateful for life, because life is precious, and we have to just enjoy every minute of it, and take the bitter with the sweet. So that unfortunate news of a student that was in my class a few years ago, being violently unalived, and just seeing his aunt on local news, just talking about him, and talking about I don't know what he did, but he didn't deserve to pass that way. It just was a sad situation. But prayers and condolences to his family, and it's just a sad situation. Uh Today's, well, let me phrase that. Tonight's show, the topics are, first of all, I'm gonna talk about boxing. Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. Then I'm gonna talk about the 2025 NBA playoffs. Then I'm gonna talk the Shannon Sharp situation. Then Shador Sanders situation. Then I'm gonna talk about how only one HBCU player was drafted in the 2025 NFL draft. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about the Southern University topic, which more than likely will be my next video. But, let's get it popping. First and foremost, the first topic. This past weekend, Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, they had a very good scrap. This fight was huge in the UK. They're both UK fighters. They are both sons of UK legends. Chris Eubank Jr. being the son of Chris Eubank Sr., and Conor Benn being the son of Nigel Benn. One of my partners was like, he said, Coach, I don't watch boxing. He said both of those, boxers are black, and clearly both of these boys' moms are white. And I'm like, bro, like, I know I focus on race a lot, but god dog, bro, like, you gotta focus on that. But even with that being said, I'm not even gonna lie, it was a good scrap. From the outset of the fight, it was obvious that Chris Eubank Jr. was clearly the bigger fighter. However, he looked a little sluggish, slow, and lethargic to me. Whereas Conor Ben, even though he was the smaller fighter, he was quicker on his feet. He was more explosive, more athletic, and he was constantly, in my opinion, he was constantly beating Chris Eubank Jr. to the punch. Then it really came a point in the fight because, Conor Ben, he didn't work behind the jab. He just was, throwing a lot of haymakers. He kind of fought a Roy Jones Jr. style fight. What I mean is he didn't work behind the jab. He just kept throwing like lunging overhand rights and lunging left hooks. So he really didn't work behind his jab and work his way inside. And even when he did work behind the jab and work his way inside, like he still was beating Chris Eubank Jr. to the punch. So, I felt like early in the fight that, Chris Eubank Jr. was sluggish. He was slow. He was lethargic. I felt like he should have did a better job working behind the jab, better job keeping his hands up because Conor Ben just kept beating him to the punch. And when he was in close quarters, he should have went to the body. Well, based on how things ended up transpiring, to me it seems as if Conor Ben should have been the one going to the body because I'll probably say the fourth, fifth round, he really gassed out. And then it got to a point where Chris Eubank Jr. kept catching him with uppercuts as he was coming in. And the tide and the momentum really started to turn in the fight. And early in the fight, Conor Ben just was constantly beating Chris Eubank Jr. to the punch. I felt like Chris Eubank Jr. should have did a better job in the early rounds working behind the jab. But as the fight progressed, the tide turned and Chris Eubank Jr. really had the momentum and he really kind of took over the fight. And I'm not gonna lie, like the last few rounds were very, very, very good rounds in terms of action and excitement. I'm not gonna lie, it's not like it wasn't like high level, like maybe I don't know Roy Jones Jr. versus Bernard Hopkins, Gerald G. Man McClellan and James Toney. It wasn't like a high level like chess match. It was more of a Mickey Ward or Arturo Gatti, like Rock'em Sock'em Robot type fight. But even with that being said, it was very exciting. It was very entertaining. Like the last few rounds, they fought against the ropes and they fought in a phone booth, just leaning against each other. Because I'm going to be honest with you, both of them at this point were very exhausted. And they were leaning on each other, just trading shots back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It really was a very good, entertaining fight. And I'm not going to lie, Conor Ben caught Chris Eubank Jr. in some of these exchanges with some hellacious punches and really should have put him down. And both of them were clearly gassed at one point. If I'm not mistaken, I think it might have been 11th, 12th round. One point, Chris Eubank Jr. went for a left hook, and he missed. And I thought he was going to fall face first on the canvas. But, both guys kept trading punches, leaning against each other, holding each other up, and just back and forth. And Chris Eubank Jr. ended up winning a decision. And I'm not going to lie, they scored it 116, 112. I scored it 115, 113, which is 7 rounds to 5. A few of those rounds were very, very, very close rounds that could have went either way. But I honestly, legitimately thought Chris Eubank Jr. won the fight. And it was a very good scrap. And truthfully speaking, I would like to see a rematch. And I would like to see him running back. It was a very good, exciting fight. Like I said, it wasn't like the most skilled, high-level fight. It was more of a, it wasn't like Let me see. It wasn't like, I don't know, like Floyd Mayweather Jr., Oscar De La Hoya. It was more like Mickey Ward, Arturo Gatti. And, not to disrespect them, two fighters, but like Floyd Mayweather Jr. said about Arturo Gatti leading in one of their fights. I'm an A+ fighter, you're a C+ fighter. And I'm not going to lie, truthfully speaking, if you compare the two fighters, that was a pretty accurate assessment going into the fight all those years ago. And the end result showed that was the case. So, it was a very good fight, very entertaining fight. The next topic is the 2025 NBA playoffs. I'm not going to lie, when I was younger, especially like when I was in my early teens, well, really when I was like a kid, probably, definitely in my teens, my 20s, even in my early 30s, I used to, when it came to like NFL and NBA, I used to watch as many NFL games on Sunday as I could. Whether the Saints won, whether the Saints lost, I just still watch as many games as I could. And when it came to the NBA, during the regular season, I watched as many as I could, and even in the playoffs, especially like that first like kickoff weekend, like that day, I'll probably watch 3-4 NBA games when the playoffs start. And, night after night, I'll watch at least 2 NBA games. But it's to a point now, especially, the Saints and the Pelicans they both leave a lot to be desired. So the Pelicans are not in the playoffs, clearly. And I still been watching, but not like I did when I was significantly younger. If my team not in it, I'm really not as moved. But still in all, one of my subscribers asked me, like, Coach, like, why don't you talk more about the NBA? Because I'm going to keep it a buck. Like, my channel is a Southern University channel. Unless I do these Southern Baller Show, Bayou Sports Talk type shows where I talk about a variety of different sports topics. Like, my subscribers, if it's not Southern University football, they don't want to hear this nonsense. So that's why I didn't talk about the NBA playoffs. And just to kind of let you know, it's kind of after the fact, but these were my picks. First on the Western Conference side of things, I picked the Oklahoma City Thunder to sweep the Memphis Grizzlies, which pretty much happened. Next, I picked the Denver Nuggets to beat the LA Clippers in 7. That series could kind of go either way because it's tied 2-2 at this point. Then this was the series that I really kind of was scratching my head. It kind of go either way. The LA Lakers and Minnesota Timberwolves. I picked the Timberwolves to win in 7. Look like I'm going to be wrong in that instance. I think the Timberwolves going to win the series, but I don't think it's going to go 7 at this point. I think it's going to go no more than 6. And the reason why this series is kind of tough for me to pick, I feel like the NBA kind of want the Lakers to be successful, but at the same token, they got a young star in Anthony Edwards. The Lakers got Luka and LeBron, but the reason why I ended up picking the T-Wolves is because, truthfully speaking, I kind of feel like at this stage in his career, LeBron is a liability defensively, and so is Luka. I think the two of them on the court at the same time. So that's why I kind of went with the Timberwolves. In the last series in the Western Conference, I picked the Golden State Warriors to beat the Houston Rockets in 7 games. Of course, the Rockets is a division rival of my New Orleans Pelicans. But I kind of felt like, with Jimmy Butler and with Steph Curry and Draymond Green, the three of them in terms of, the playoff experience, I felt like those 3 individuals will propel them. Of course, Jimmy got nicked up in one of the games. But I still think OKC, I'm not got me saying OKC got dog. Golden State Warriors, I still think they're gonna win. It still could go They up 2-1. I don't know. They still could win in 7. We'll see how things play out. On the Eastern Conference side of things, I picked the Cleveland Cavaliers to sweep the Miami Heat. That still could happen. We'll see. And I also picked the Boston Celtics to sweep the Orlando Magic. And they up 3-1, so they clearly didn't get the sweep, but like they're gonna go on and win that series. Now these other 2 series, it's kind of either way. Between the Bucks and the Pacers, I really didn't know which way to go. My heart was telling me the Bucks, but my head was telling me the Indiana Pacers. I picked the Pacers to win in 7. Don't look like it's gonna go that. The reason why I picked the Pacers is because, Jrue Holiday is one of my favorite Pelican players of all time. I kind of favor him over Chris Paul and Anthony Davis because of at least he kind of wanted to be there, and they traded him because they were going in different direction. The 2 of them just wanted out. And I'm not gonna lie, I felt like when the Bucks traded Jrue Holiday, that kind of was like, the first sign of their team just kind of starting to fall off in my eyes. I think them letting Holiday go, trade him to the Blazers, and then him turning around going to the Celtics, I think that kind of elevated the Celtics to being the championship team that they became last year. And then when it came to the Knicks and the Pistons, I'm not gonna lie, I was leaning towards the Pistons. But again, I picked the Knicks to win in 7. I don't think it's gonna go 7. The Knicks up 3-1, but I kind of felt like it should be 2-2 because I felt like the Ruffs kind of screwed the Pistons over in that last game. But it is what it is. So I don't think that one is gonna go 7. And definitely the Pacers and the Bucks not going 7. But I kind of feel like them trading Holiday and Chris Middleton, that's kind of been a downfall in my personal opinion. And then of course overall, in terms of the grand scheme of things, I pick the Boston Celtics and the Denver Nuggets to meet in the NBA Finals, with the Boston Celtics beating the Denver Nuggets in 6. Now I'm not gonna lie, I could kind of be wrong. If the Oklahoma City Thunder progress the way that they should progress and need to progress, they'll probably be the team coming out the West. But it's kind of too early to tell. I'm still gonna kind of stand on my 2 picks in terms of the Boston Celtics and the Denver Nuggets. But of course, the Denver Nuggets still not the same team that they were year before last. Losing a player or 2 could kind of make a difference when you're a championship team, but it kind of is what it is. So, that's, my real quick perspective or point of view when it comes to the NBA 2025 NBA playoffs. Next topic, I'm going to talk about this one real quick. We talked about it yesterday on Southern Baller Show. If you've not done so, I have it pinned in the post section of my channel. My brother's channel, Jared Lovin Green, himself, his twin JB, the brother Brent Fox, Lieutenant Brent Fox, and the brother Big Joe Townsend, who always stand on LDBC business. We had an excellent episode yesterday of the Southern Baller Show, and we talked about the whole Shannon Sharpe situation. So I'm not going to beat this particular topic in the ground. However, those individuals that do know, Shannon Sharpe is being sued by she was at the time 19. I think she's in her 20s now. This OnlyFans model that I'm not gonna say he was dating, because let's keep it real, he wasn't dating her. It was purely a physical relationship. That's my delicate way of putting it. It was just purely a physical relationship. And not only that, another one of his ex-girlfriends. Now, he was actually dating this woman, from what I'm understanding. Both of them came out. They both filed SA charges on him. Not criminal charges, but in a civil suit, they trying to, the OnlyFans chick, she trying to get $50 million out of him. He was up for a $100 million contract with ESPN. And, him being up for that $100 million contract at ESPN, then all of a sudden she come out the woodworks. Hey, She trying to sue him. He tried to settle with her for $10 million. And her ambulance chasing lawyer, Tony Busby, this guy, done filed lawsuits against Jay-Z, against Diddy. A lot of times his facts aren't even in alignment with what actually transpired. So in the 90s, those lawyers, used to see these commercials where, you'd have the ambulance and ambulance driving off. You'd have lawyers chasing the ambulance. He that type of lawyer. And truthfully speaking, I think if, we live in America, so anything can kind of happen. But at the end of the day, like any judge with any type of common sense will really realize that in both of these instances, Shannon Sharpe had consensual relationships with these women. And it's just a 3 or 4 shakedown in the money grab. At the end of the day, I'm going to keep it a buck. Shannon Sharpe should have been smarter in this and not put himself in this compromising situation. However, I'm still standing behind him. And I'm not going to lie, at times, whether it was on Fox, FS1, or ESPN, I kind of felt like he's been, how I'm going to say this, he kind of been synonymous for buck dancing to me and cooning and buffooning. But even with that being said, I don't like the gross double, triple, quadruple standard because, so many people online are talking about him being a creepy old uncle and him being a perv and a pedo and all of these type of things where, somebody like Bill Belichick, he's 75 dating like a 25-year-old. Leonardo DiCaprio doing the same thing. And just all throughout history, you have people like Elvis Presley, the director, Woody Harrelson. You got all of these guys over the years. Hugh Hefner, even Diddy. That's why when people talk about no Diddy, and look, bro, I don't hear that nonsense because guess what? All the Diddy party was a Hugh Hefner Playboy Mansion party. And Hugh Hefner has been, glorified and pedestalized in this country for being, the smooth player. So when you talk about no Diddy and Diddy a pedo and a creep and this, that, and that, I don't want to hear that. Because guess what? As far as I'm concerned, Hugh Hefner did far worse than Diddy ever did. But that's the clear double standard in the criminal justice system here in America. So, you can have people like Elvis Presley, Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey did this not too long ago. And you literally had black YouTubers defending Josh Giddey, coming his defense. Hey, where he's from in Australia, the age of legal consent is 16. They're making all of these excuses for Josh Giddey. And on ESPN make me sick. Anytime a black athlete does something, they are quick to throw that black athlete under the bus. White athlete Josh Giddey does something, and guess what? Nobody bats an eye. Nobody cares. They barely even mention it. And then when they finally do mention it, they say they won't be cautious. They won't give him the benefit of due process. On the same exact show, hey, there's allegations of Von Miller, whose girlfriend at the time, baby mama, she was pregnant, and the DV charges. And guess what? They acted as if Von Miller was guilty, so they didn't give him the benefit of due process. So that's why I can't stand this ridiculous double standard when it comes to media and just this country in general. And not only that, but, even black women. Like I said, I can't stand the gender war between black women and black men on social media. All these black women calling Shannon Sharpe creepy old uncle, pedo, perv. But Tracy Ellis Ross goes on Michelle Obama's red table type talk, feminist empowerment show. And guess what? She talk about dating younger men. And look, man, I don't care how they try to spin it. Somebody ain't the same. Look, I don't hear that. It is what it is. At the end of the day, some of these same black women that's calling Shannon Sharpe a creepy old pedo or perv, whatever the case may be, some of these same black women are essentially praising Tracy Ellis Ross or they're not mentioning the situation at all. So at the end of the day, like this gross double, triple, quadruple standard is ridiculous. If a white man does it, nobody cares. In this particular instance, hey, even a black woman dating younger guy, it is what it is. And let's keep it real. The issue with this whole Shannon Sharpe situation is not the fact that they are underage. Of course they are. They're not underage because, let me rephrase that. They have age of legal consent because she was 19. So she's an adult. If you could be this strong, independent boss chick and this girl power empowerment type person, then you can't say she's being taken advantage of. And not only that, this whole scenario, whole situation, truthfully speaking, it looked like he taking advantage. She was taking advantage of him instead of he taking advantage of her. But at the end of the day, like you can't outsmart this man and be the victim at the same time. Like you cannot have it both ways. And at the end of the day, truthfully speaking, he should have used better discernment, better judgment, not put himself in these compromised situations. But even with that being said, on this particular issue, I kind of stand with him. But I can't stand the double, the triple, quadruple standard. Bill Belichick does it, it's fine. Josh Giddey has an SA situation. They just sweep it under the rug, it's fine. Ben Roethlisberger actually legitimately raped a woman and it's swept under the rug, it's fine. But Shannon Sharpe is in a consensual relationship with a young woman. Hey, he a creepy old pedo. Tracy Ellis Ross date younger men. It's cool. So at the end of the day, like if you're gonna have smoke for Shannon Sharpe, you need to have smoke for everybody across the board. Whether we're talking about Josh Giddey, Ben Roethlisberger, or Leonardo DiCaprio, or Bill Belichick, Tracy Ellis Ross, had the same smoke for everybody across the board. That's my only issue with this whole particular situation. At the end of the day, it kind of is what it is. So, I rock with. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't rock with Shannon across the board, but I'm standing in defense of him in this situation. It's clearly nothing but a 304 money shakedown. He should have been smarter, but at the same token, to me, that still don't justify this 304 activity, this 304 behavior, in my opinion, in terms of, this clearly ain't nothing but a money grab. But it is what it is. Moving on to the next topic, Shedeur Sanders. Now, individuals that follow my channel, they know that I don't like the way Deion Sanders left Jackson State. I felt like if you want to leave Jackson State, just say, hey, the University of Colorado University, has granted me a better opportunity. As a result, I want to take this better opportunity. I want to move on to greener pastures, as opposed to the smear campaign on his way out of Jackson State, talking about how hood and how ratchet Jacktown is and how they stole his wallet, they stole his chain, they stole this, they stole that, whoop the woo. And then in addition to that, just the smear campaign on his way out of Jackson State. Like, look, like I say, if you want to go to Colorado, just go to Colorado and say here's a better opportunity. And I thank Jackson State for putting me in a position to take this better opportunity. But he had to, dirty up Jackson State on his way out the door. And then, him being in Colorado, the whole Ryan Garcia situation really pissed me off because this dude went on, a racist rant, racist tirade. He came in overweight. He cheated Devin the Dream Haney. And you got this dude parading this dude around your team in your locker room in Colorado. At the end of the day, Ryan Garcia is a scumbag piece of trash. There's nothing he could do that erase the racist tirades he done went on and talking in terms of talking about bringing George Floyd back to life so you can unalive him again, and talking about Muslims and talking about Jews and talking about the alphabet community. Now, had this been a black boxer, a black athlete that said all of the things he said, he would be the scum of the earth. But this scumbag piece of trash, this low down dirty POS Ryan Garcia, it's cool with him. Everything is fine. And this is the type of player, this is the type of individual that Deion had in his locker room around his players. And Shedeur was rocking with him too. And that's why I kind of, I was kind of turned off by him a little bit too. But I'm not even going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. What happened in the NFL draft for him to be a first-round prospect and fall from the first round to the 144th pick of the fifth round where he was drafted by the Cleveland Browns. Can't nobody tell me this wasn't an organized hit piece or organized buck breaking by the system that is the NFL. There's no way you cannot tell me that wasn't an organized plan, that they didn't intentionally blackball him, blacklist him, and push his draft value and his draft stock down significantly. Can't nobody tell me that wasn't the case. Because there's no way in hell, despite what transpired, what went on, that he should have fell that far in the draft. You can't make me believe that. You cannot make me understand that. And at the end of the day, it kind of is what it is. It goes to show you that in this country, like I said, even though I really don't rock with Deion. Anytime you're a black man and you are confident and you're not quiet, you're not humble, white people don't see that as being confident. They see that as being arrogant and braggadocious and so on and so forth. So, they clearly send a message to him and to his dad that, hey boy, you better come in this NFL. You better keep your mouth shut. You better fall in line. And you better do what we say. Because, clearly they buck broke him during the 2025 NFL draft. Can't nobody tell me nothing different. Can't nobody tell me otherwise, because at the end of the day, there's no way that he should have fell that far. And I'm going to address my home team, my favorite NFL team, the New Orleans Saints. I wasn't a fan of them drafting him in the first round. I'm not even going to lie. I wasn't a fan of them drafting him in the first round. And the offensive line is trash. Trevor Penning, in my opinion, is a bust. Cesar Ruiz is a bust. Ryan Ramczyk is retired. Eric McCoy is by far the best offensive lineman the Saints has. According to NFL Pro Focus, he one of the top 5 NFL offensive linemen in the entire league, according to Pro Football Focus. So, when he went down, the offensive line definitely suffered. So they needed offensive line help, and they drafted the offensive lineman in the first round. Cool. But in the second round, if you're going to draft a quarterback, it should have been Shedeur Sanders and not this bum Tyler Show. If this young man Tyler Show from Louisville, I don't mean to speak ill of him, but man, from what I saw, the highlights of him, this young man is not impressive at all. To me, unless this dude is the second coming of Drew Brees, I think Mickey Loomis, they need to get rid of him. They need to fire his ass ASAP Rocky if this young man don't pan out to be like the next Drew Brees. Because there's no way you got Shedeur Sanders sitting here and you're going to draft this 25, 26, 27-year-old quarterback out of Louisville. Come on, bro. Man, this dude been in college for 5, 6, 7 years, and you're going to draft him over Shedeur? Man, there's no way you cannot tell me this wasn't an organized effort by the NFL. And at the end of the day, people can say what they want. I'm not buying the whole, hey, he not this, he not that. It was a way to humble him. I don't care what nobody say. I don't believe anything else aside from that. This clearly was an organized hit by the NFL. They buck broke him. They view his daddy as being cocky and arrogant. And then, of course, a few months back, he said he don't want his son to go to certain teams. So at the end of the day, Deion should have been smarter than what he was in handling Shedeur leading up to the draft. But even with that being said, I don't care what he said. I don't care what transpired. There's no way he should have felt as far as he did in the draft. And to me, there's no way you can rationalize it, no way you can justify it. and it kind of is what it is. And at the end of the day, I'm not even gonna lie. Like it's sad the way everything popped off in terms of the Shedeur Sanders situation in the NFL draft. And I'm not even gonna lie. I hope, even though I don't like, him rocking with Ryan Garcia, I wish it well. I hope he goes on to become a franchise quarterback with the Cleveland Browns and they win a Super Bowl. Truthfully speaking, because there's no way he should have fell as far as he did. Hopefully he used this entire situation. It's a learning lesson, it's a learning experience. And he used this as fuel and motivation to go on to do great things and to do bigger and better things. The next topic. Speaking of the 2025 NFL draft, there was only one player out of HBCU that was drafted. And congratulations to Carson Vincent, offensive tackle, Alabama A&M. I'm not gonna lie, I saw him play. I'm not even gonna lie, I didn't know he was gonna get drafted prior to leading up to the draft, and they was talking about how good he was. I'm glad he got drafted. At least one HBCU player got drafted, but there's no way you could tell me that only one HBCU player was good enough to get drafted in the 2025 NFL draft. I don't believe that. You can't convince me otherwise. I'm not sorry about my stance. I'm unapologetic. Now, don't get me wrong. You had other players like you got a bunch of HBCU players that signed undrafted free agent contracts. Jordan Toles from Morgan State, he signed with the Baltimore Ravens. Willie Drew from Virginia State, he signed with the Carolina Panthers. Ian Wheeler from Howard, he signed with the Chicago Bears. Jerion Howard from Jackson State signed with the Green Bay Packers. Jablonski Green from South Carolina State, he signed with the Indianapolis Colts. Mikey Victor from Alabama State, he signed with the New England Patriots. So you had guys from HBCUs that signed contracts as undrafted free agents. But, in my mind, you really can't convince me that Carson Vincent was the only HBCU player worthy of being drafted in the 2025 NFL draft. I mean, at the end of the day, hopefully we have more HBCU players drafted in the future because, before I move on to the final topic, I'm not going to lie, some years ago when I was teaching at this school in Marksville, Louisiana, in central Louisiana, this player that played for Grambling, when I was a kid, when I was a baby, he was drafted. He played for Grambling under, legendary coach Eddie Robertson. He ended up playing for the New England Patriots. His name is Carlos Pennywell. And I'm not gonna lie, years ago he told me, he said, Coach, he said, I ain't gonna even lie. He said, the way the NFL draft is set up, he said it's a system. And he said they intentionally want like PWI Power 5 players, to be drafted in those early rounds. And he said, at the time when he played for the Patriots, that, the players like from HBCUs were like really like the best players on the team. And he said it's just a system that's set up in terms of the draft. He said it ain't about the best players being drafted first, so on and so forth. Of course, he played in a different era, late 70s, early 80s in terms of college football. But, in terms of him saying the way it's set up as the system, I wholeheartedly and fervently believe everything he told me because, he actually played in the NFL and he went through everything. So at the end of the day, like I honestly, legitimately believe that he's right in terms of his position and his stance. All those years ago, he told me this. So, hopefully next year, there's more than one player from an HBCU drafted in the 2026 NFL draft. I'm not going to hold my breath, but hopefully there's more than one. And the final topic for episode 7 of the Coaches Show, And it's more than likely going to be my next video. Southern University defensive back Tice Faucier. He has entered the transfer portal. Now, I was talking to someone, and it was like, coach, another Southern University player entered the transfer portal. Like, what's your thoughts on this? Truthfully speaking, everybody from Southern University that enters the transfer portal, I wish them all well. I wish them luck in their future endeavors. Especially, at least, a lot of these guys that entering the transfer portal, they're already graduated, so they grad transfers. Even if they don't get picked up by another school, at least they already have a degree, so they have something that they can move forward with. And in addition to that, I wish them well, despite, whether they transfer as a grad student or not, even if they're underclassmen, they transfer, I wish them well. But I don't think anything of it. I just think it's the landscape of college football and college athletics and college sports in 2025. You can have players that's starters, are projected to be starters, are players that could potentially do big things, and they decide they want to enter the transfer portal. And it kind of is what it is. Salute to my brother Jared 11 Green. What up, coach? What up, bro? And like I said, if y'all have not done so already, go check out yesterday's episode of the Southern Baller Show. We had a great episode. But back to what I was saying, I don't think it's any reflection on Coach Graves, the coaching staff. I think it's just the way things are in 2025. And me personally, for the most part, there's nothing you could do about that. The only thing I just was kind of more of a proponent of, if you got a player that's like a superstar caliber player, maybe like a Jordan Lewis, Kelby Gibbons, Kendrick Grimes, whoever, I just try to see if you get that player to come back. Most instances they come back, they don't always come back, but it kind of is what it is. There's nothing you really could do to prevent all the players that's entering the transfer portal. And it's not an issue with Southern, it's an issue with Jackson State, it's an issue all around the SWAC. In fact, hell, it's an issue in college football in general. I mean, it's to a point now you got the kid from Tennessee, he getting millions of NIL money, and during the spring, he's not gonna play in the spring game. He holding out because hey, he want more NIL money. And not only that, but you had a player from UNLV who was promised NIL money, and he didn't get it. So he decided, what? Guess what? I ain't playing. Y'all didn't give me my money. F it, I'm not playing. And I'm surprised we haven't heard more horror stories in terms of like the NIL money, just college football being a wild, wild west, and players jumping in and out the transfer portal, so on and so forth. And I'm not gonna lie, like if you're a player, an HBCU player, and you at a certain school, certain institution, just if you're just an HBCU player in general, I'm gonna keep it a buck. I would be cautious if I'm gonna jump in the transfer portal. Be certain if you're gonna jump in the transfer portal that you have a soft place to land. And that would be my advice to any HBCU player jumping in the transfer portal. But that's it for this edition of the Coaches Show. I planned on being here for a good time, but not a long time. I appreciate everybody that watched the show, and I appreciate everybody that's gonna watch it on playback. If you have not done so already, please like this live stream, share it, subscribe to the channel. The last time I checked, I think I'm like 270 subscribers away from reaching that magical, majestic 1,000 subscriber mark. So if you're not done so already, please subscribe to the channel. like and share the content if you want me to keep doing more content. In terms of what you want in future videos, future editions of the Coaches Show, future videos, put it in the chat. I appreciate everybody that's going to watch it on playback, everybody that watched it. I want to give a major shout out to the LDBC. Major shout out to my brother Jared Levin Green. Be sure to go check out yesterday's episode of the Southern Baller Show. Also, go check out my brother Brent Fox on his channel with his show. It's Just Me starring Brent Fox. Go check out the beloved sister Shawala Yah. She had an excellent interview with Brian Norman Sr. If you're a boxer fan like myself, go check it out. And she does a lot of just great boxing content in general. And go check out the leader of this organization, my brother 7A Sports TV. Go check him out. He has 2 channels. His primary channel is 7A Sports TV. His backup channel is the No 304 Show. He had an excellent live stream last night with the brother Blue Ray Fitness, who is his co-host, and also the brother BFTV Best Fight the Best. Great show last night. Probably ended up being one of the better editions of the No 304 Show. I'll catch y'all on the rebound tomorrow. I will have another video that's going to drop at some point tomorrow. And in addition to that, I'm going to go rock with the brother C. Wells on Swag Talk. We're going to have a special post 2025 Blue versus Gold spring game edition of Swag Talk with C. Wells. It's going to be at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. So come over to his channel and check it out. I'll catch y'all on the rebound. Y'all have a blessed, phenomenal evening. Blessed, phenomenal day tomorrow. Peace and blessings. And go Jags.